Sarah's in Liverpool. Sarah, you're through to the Prime Minister. Go ahead, your question. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Yes, Sarah.
In the light of last week's climate report and Britain's pledge to get to net zero, do you think that you are being hypocritical by allowing oil and gas exploration in the North Sea by granting new licences, bearing in mind that the stocks of North Sea gas and oil are dwindling and have been for a very long time?
Sarah, thanks for the question. I think this is really important, actually. I'm so glad you asked. Look, I care about net zero. I've got 2 young kids. I care about leaving them an environment and a climate in better state than we found it and I found it in. But we're going to do that in a proportionate and in a pragmatic way. But on this question of North Sea licences, I 100% believe that what I'm doing is right. I'll tell you why. If you look at the independent forecasts and estimates, even when we meet our net zero target in 2050, around a quarter of our energy will still come from fossil fuels. I don't think people quite realise that, right? But that's the case. So then the question you have to ask yourself is, given that, where would we prefer to have that energy come from? I'm pretty clear that it's better to have it from here at home. Why? Because it's better for our security, so we're not more reliant on foreign dictators like Vladimir Putin. It's good for our economy and jobs. We just had a question about how do we support businesses. Well, 200,000 people are employed in that industry, thousands of businesses, and I'd like to support them. It's also good for our NHS. You asked about that earlier, Nick, because you know what? That generates an enormous amount of tax revenue that we can use to pay for the NHS. And lastly, and for Sarah, it's good for us to talk about this as well, it's better for the environment. Because if I have to get that energy from halfway around the world and ship it here, it will come with 3 or 4 times the carbon emissions. So any which way you look at it, the right sensible thing to do is to use the energy we have here at home as we transition to net zero, which we are going to do. But this is a part of doing that and doing it properly.
I have to challenge you. Chris Skidmore, your Conservative colleague who led a review into net zero, says that this is on the wrong side of history, that will not look favourably on the decision taken today. Antonio Guterres, you know who, that's of course the United Nations General Secretary, says, and I quote, "The 2 truly dangerous radicals are the countries that are increasing the production of fossil fuels." That makes you a dangerous radical.
No, because we're reducing our reliance over time on fossil fuels.
But you're increasing the production.
At home.
Yeah,
which is the right... we're not actually...
Truly dangerous radicals are the countries that are increasing the production of fossil fuels, says the United Nations General Secretary General.
Well, so what I would say, not just to him, but more generally,
and to your colleague Chris Skidmore,
let's look at the record. Which G7 country out of the large countries, America, Italy, France, Germany, us, Canada, Japan, which of those countries has decarbonised fastest over the past years or decades? Which one? It's the UK.
Okay.
Right? So
okay.
We should not take any lectures from anybody about our record. Our record is fantastic. It's better than everyone else's. So I think we can take comfort in that. And are we doing the right thing? Of course we're doing the right thing. We're transitioning to net zero. We're increasing the amount of renewable energy. Again, I'd say that's to Secretary General and everyone else. Where's the largest offshore wind farm in the world? Here in the UK. Where's the second largest? Here in the UK. Third largest, fourth largest here in the UK.
Your point is well
Where
made.
do we get half of our electricity from this year? Renewables, right? So we are making progress, but it is absolutely right to get energy from here at home as we've transitioned.
How have you sold this to 2 of the most important people in your life? I know how keenly you love your family. You told my LBC colleague Andrew Marr that the questions your 2 daughters, both pre-teens, asked you the most or concerns are climate change. How have you sold that to the girls?
Well, I'm sure it's something we'll be discussing over the summer.
Haven't they said, "Daddy, what are you doing?"
Of course, no. Well, actually, we haven't got into this in detail.
Okay, let's posit that they're going to say, "Daddy, what are you doing?"
And I'll explain it to them in exactly the way I have. And we have good chat round our table about all these things.
But
and I've got 2 girls
the boss of the UN
who have
says you're a radical, Daddy.
Quite different views on things actually between the 2 of them, which is fun at home. So I got ready-made focus group at home. But look, in the same way that I'm explaining it to Sarah and everyone else listening, I'd make the same case to them. We are going to get to net zero. That's my commitment. But even when we're there, we will still need fossil fuels.
Okay.
So is it better to have them from here at home, supporting people's jobs, the economy, public services like the NHS, and being less reliant on Vladimir Putin? And by the way, fewer carbon emissions rather than shipping things here from halfway around the world. I think those are all just sensible, practical reasons. So, yes, that is the right thing to do.
You're confident you'll win them over?
I am, because I think on this topic, I think, like most people, they don't approach it as some kind of, they're not eco-zealots. They actually, I think, are open to sensible, practical arguments, as I think probably most of your listeners are as well.